crazy homeowners association enforcer gets a taste of her own medicine. Check out this video in podcast form by searching Austin Stories wherever you listen, or check the video description for a link. I'm house sitting at the moment for my cousin. He and his boyfriend lived in a pretty swanky neighborhood full of McMansions. Nothing too fancy, just your common upper middle class suburban development. Anyhow, over the past few weeks, they've been having a new porch installed on the back of the house. The crew has a trailer parked out front so they can lock up their tools at night. No big deal, right? Apparently, it is. This evening, I get a knock on the door. I'm always wary of solicitors, so I make it a point to look out the window before answering the door. After hearing the doorbell, it takes me a minute to get to the window. As I look outside, I see a woman walking away with two little dogs. One of the dogs stops and proceeds to mess on my cousin's lawn. I wait until the dog is done and open the door. By this time, the woman is beginning to walk away, but she sees me and turns around. She introduces herself as a board member of the HOA, or as we know, Homeowners Association. She looks very annoyed. Without even taking a breath, she launches into a lecture about the trailer parked out front, how she's lucky to have walked by and caught this egregious violation of the HOA rules, and how the trailer is an eyesore on the neighborhood. She says she won't report me to the board and suggests a fine if I remove it immediately. I calmly inform her about the patio construction and how the crew needs to store their tools and materials at night, but she's absolutely foaming at the mouth about how tacky it is to have a trailer in front of the house, and again, it's against the rules. So I calmly inform her that I am not the homeowner nor the owner of the trailer. Well, and there isn't much that I can do about it, especially at 6:30 p.m. on a Friday night. Nevertheless, she's adamant that I do something. By this point, I am just fed up with this woman, who obviously has nothing better to do with her evening than bother her neighbors with bullcrap. I look at her and just casually ask, "Hey, just out of curiosity, what's the fine for not picking up after your dog if it messes in someone's lawn?" I tell ya, the look on her face at that point was classic. She stuttered for a minute before telling me that she would have to look into that, and I told her I'd be grateful if she did, because my cousin has been suspecting a neighbor of letting their dog mess in his lawn, so he set up a video camera in the window to catch the culprit. Upon hearing that, she got a little flustered and told me to tell the patio crew to hurry up, and then she walked away with a huff. If you want to get cool badges and see some videos early while supporting me and the channel, click the join button to become a member. Thanks. My landlord lied to the HOA about having renters with an update. My husband, daughter, and I just moved to a nice suburb area of a large city from a town about 3 hours away. We found our rental house on Zillow and fell in love with it. We arranged a meeting right away with the landlord, who was very eager to have us as her tenants. Things were going well until issue number 1 came up. We have a golden retriever. She said that her last tenant's dog had done a lot of damage to the property, and in order to rent to us, she needed a $3,000 refundable pet deposit. After debating on whether we should pay such a large sum, we agreed because we don't have very good credit and we have an eviction from 2015. So the amount paid to the landlord prior to moving in was $2,400 first month's rent, $2,400 deposit, $3,000 pet deposit. That's $7,800 in total. She also required proof of pet vaccination, flea medicine, and renter's insurance prior to moving in. We were aware of the HOA, but the landlord didn't speak much about it, nor was it in the lease. Our assumption was that the HOA fees were handled by the landlord, since they weren't discussed. This is our first time in a neighborhood with an HOA, so we moved into the house on September 30th of this year. Things were going well until issue number 2. I tried to sign up for the trash service today, and I called the local trash company, and they informed us that the account was set up through the HOA. The trash company told me to call the HOA to set it up and gave me a phone number to call. I had questions about lawn care and where to pick up our mail anyway, so I called and left a message with the phone number provided where I stated my name, my new address, and the phone number, and then mentioned that I was a new tenant seeking information. The lady at the HOA immediately called our landlord after receiving my message and told her that the HOA prohibits renters and we need to leave immediately. The landlord attempted to lie and say that we are her roommates and that she told us to say the same if they call. That obviously isn't going to work, and we are expected to move out right away. We told the landlord that we would leave, but we would need a few days to pack up our stuff and find somewhere else to live. We also told her that we expect a full refund since our contract was signed under false pretenses of no fault of our own. She told us that if we do not move out in 48 hours, that she will be prorating our refund because she shouldn't be expected to pay our bills. My questions are, what options do we have as renters with a 12-month lease? How can we get our money back from the landlord? And can we report the landlord to the HOA for past renters as well and any future ones? Here's the update. We haven't spoken with our landlord since she agreed to give us our money back in full, but as someone mentioned, we will try to get that agreement in writing. We found another house already, and we plan on moving into the new one tomorrow. We've taken pictures and videos of the house. Since we have only been in the house for 5 days, everything is in the exact same condition that it was when we moved in. This entitled Karen tries to get their car out of the tow lot for free. So this story has the entitled man, the man's girl, and a coworker. So this happened a few days ago while I was working security at my local tow lot for my company. This couple came in within minutes of the lobby opening. Karen said, "Hello, can we get some service here?" Even though the lobby just opened, and they walked right up to the help window used by parking enforcement to dispute tickets. So I kindly walk up and tell them, "Hey, I am sorry, but this particular window isn't used by tow lot staff, but window 1 is open." At this point, I get death flared at by the guy, and I simply walk back to my spot to monitor the lobby. The couple go to window 1, and it goes relatively well. I was more paying attention to a pair of teenagers to make sure that they don't do anything when I hear the man yell, "What the heck are you saying? We want our car and you're holding it hostage." At this point, I begin to move close, just in case. Her car shouldn't have been towed in the first place. She has no tickets. Coworker says, "Sir, the vehicle in question was towed for blocking an alleyway. There was snow on both sides and we weren't blocking crap. I can understand that, sir, but your car wouldn't have been towed if it wasn't blocking the alleyway. Even partially blocking is subject to towing." The girl says, "Honey, let's just get out of here. There's no point arguing." "No, screw that. These jerks stole our car," he says. So I cough to get their attention. "Sir, there are children in the lobby. I'm going to have to ask you to stop swearing and calm down." The entitled man-child Karen turned to me and he tried, and I just say tried, to intimidate me. What the heck did you just say? Now, let me just put this in here. I personally stand 6 feet 2 inches tall, and this man was around 5'6", and I made sure to train myself so I'm ready for anything. This guy looked ready to snap. So I leaned down to look him in the eye. "I asked you to stop swearing and to keep your voice down. You are not the only one in here this morning." Man-child Karen at least listened for a little bit until they got to the price. Coworker said, "Okay, Mr. Karen, that will be this huge amount of money." Okay. So both the man-child and the man's girl had their eyes wide in disbelief. "Are you kidding me? First you steal my car, now you're telling me that I have to pay?" My coworker, being super chill, nods and adds, "Sir, you do realize this is a tow lot, not a parking lot. Your vehicle, well, it was towed and it was issued a fine. That's the reason for the payment." At this point, the man's girl seemed to give up and turned to leave. "Come on, honey, let's go. We'll pay it when we can." Entitled man-child Karen didn't even look to be happy at all and slammed his hand on the window between him and the coworker. "You're freaking lucky this window's here, jerk. You stole the wrong man's car." By the time his hand hit the window, I was making a beeline to him to escort him out, when this man-child Karen turned and angrily walked off, saying, "I hope you love being on the news, because I'm calling Fox to investigate this place and I'm suing." Since then, I haven't seen any news crew nor lawyers in the lot. At this point, I'm just glad the cops didn't have to get sent to our tow lot again. Oh, that guy was so embarrassed and he did not handle himself very well at all. What a tough guy, right? What would have you done? Karen is entitled to my driveway. I had a late class in university and needed to head out around 4 p.m. to make it out on time. I had returned from walking my dog at about 3 p.m. only to find a car parked across the front of my driveway. The car was on the road, but fully blocked my entire driveway, which means that there was no way for me to back out of my garage. My house was on a small cul-de-sac in one of those massive cookie-cutter communities. It wasn't a main street, and there was absolutely no way anyone could have mistaken it for a parking spot. I say, "Excuse me, ladies, do either of you happen to know who this car belongs to?" Entitled neighbor Karen just gives me a stink eye and then turns back to the entitled Karen to keep talking. "That's my car." "Well, would you please move it? You're blocking my driveway." "I'm almost done. I'll move it when I leave." She turns back to her conversation and proceeds to ignore me. I'm annoyed at this point, but I needed to take a shower anyway, so I headed inside to get ready to go. I was ready at about 3:45 p.m., and I got in my car, opened the garage door, proceeded to start backing out when the car is still blocking my driveway. I stopped, got out, and sure enough, the two Karens are still having their Karen conversation. "Ladies, I asked you earlier to please move your car. You are blocking my driveway." "Don't you interrupt. Grown-ups are talking." I'm surprised by the outburst, and I'm confused about why this is an issue in the first place. I asked you nearly an hour ago, this is not your driveway. You are illegally parked, and I need you to move immediately. We are adults, and you are interrupting. I'll move when I'm good and ready. Stop being rude and mind your place. I am fairly patient, but that's about run out at this point. I start screaming and yelling expletives. I tell her to get her crap box away from my car and get her fat butt out of my way. It took a good 5 minutes of sustained screaming for her to just basically give up on continuing her conversation. She moved her car more to get me to shut up than because she actually thought she had any need to move. You know, you should be ashamed of yourself. This is not how you talk to adults. Show some respect. Other Karen chimed in, "Really, behavior like this is just not acceptable." "Shut up, Karens. You're allowed your hippo friends here to block my driveway. I was courteous and asked you nicely to move. I could have just called the police and have them deal with you. But you jerks responded like I was the bad guy for asking you and your friends to stop trespassing on my property." I finally headed off to school. The part about this that I found so utterly insane was that 1, I am not a child, 2, I owned that house, and 3, what was the issue with moving the car in the first place? Some people I just don't get. Yeah, I mean, honestly, what's so hard about saying like, "Hey, you need to move, I own this driveway," and just actually doing that thing? I don't get it sometimes. What have you done? A Karen trespassed on our family property and got booted out. This just happened about an hour ago. I was just cooking some chicken for lunch on my George Foreman grill when my mother came knocking on my front door. She told me that my aunt had just caught a woman trespassing on her property. When confronted, the woman held out her phone and claimed that she was using her GPS to come and see the waterfall. We have no waterfalls in our area, and she was not on any road for a GPS to work on, so bullcrap was called on that. This woman walked down a driveway that was over a quarter mile long, past my parents' house, my grandparents' house, and then went down to my aunt and uncle's house. What's more, we have no trespassing signs everywhere, but she blatantly ignored them. We then caught the woman as she was walking back up the driveway. My mother tore into her and called her out, and my stepfather had his double-barreled shotgun and told her not to come back. But this Karen nonchalantly brushed us off and tried to play ignorant the whole time. And then my aunt came driving up, and we practically had her surrounded in every direction but the road. So she walked up the road and turned onto a nearby street. My roommate and I both recognized her as a woman that we saw walking along the road recently. We live out in the hills in Oregon country. You don't usually see people walking along our street, as the nearest sidewalk is like 8 miles away, so most people out here drive. We're all of the theory that this woman may have been scouting out our property because we've had thieves and addicts in the area do that before. And a few years ago, some trespassers vandalized our property. There's even a literal MJ farm next door. So right now, we're on guard in case she or anyone trespasses, looking for anything to steal later. Update. My sister has been asking around, and the lady who trespassed on our property has been spotted around the neighborhood and has some people keeping a close eye on her. But thus far, no one knows who she is or where she lives. I'd be watching closely, keeping me and my family safe, everybody coming together as a family unit to help each other out. What would have you done? HOA wants me to build a shorter fence? Got it. My professor told me this story. He was a very, very private person, the sort of guy who would hesitate to tell you his favorite color if you hadn't known him long enough. He had recently had an incredibly nosy couple move in next door and realized that the flimsy 4-foot fence that he'd got for the dog would not keep out peeping eyes. So he installed a fence. But instead of using a standard size, which he knew his neighbors would peer over, he built an 8-foot fence. It wasn't even a week before the HOA was on his butt, threatening every fine that they could and claiming that he couldn't have a fence over 6 feet tall. So, being a dutiful citizen, he called the fence company to uninstall said fence. While the fence was being taken down, he closely examined the HOA handbook on the precise definition of a fence. He installed a new 6-foot fence that fit every single regulation, but with a 3-foot brick wall beneath it. I mean, what's the HOA going to say? He followed the rules by the book. He just added an extra foot when they wanted less. How would have you handled this? HOA takedown. HOA destroys my property, but I'm not even part of the HOA. Click the video on your screen so you don't miss this crazy fallout, and I'll see you there.